everyone, I'm Emma, a certified dog trainer.
And I'm Kirsten, a certified dog behavior consultant.
And this is Dog Chats. Join us as we chat about dog behavior, having fun with your dogs, and building relationships. We will offer practical advice and a bit of humor. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 40.
We have with us today the dog and child specialist, Michelle Stern, who is the owner and operator of Pooch Parenting. And she is going to impart some of her amazing wisdom with us today on how to support kids and dogs and families with learning how to live harmoniously together.
Thanks for having me.
I'll ask the first question. So a lot of my clients have small kids between the ages of 5 and 10 and new puppies. And so I see a lot of stuff that's happening between the nipping and if the kids are running, following them and how they're handling the puppies, and just would love to get some great tips for our clients on how to work with that. So I guess the first one would be when the puppy comes into the home, what advice you would give to the parents?
So that's a really common time for families to get dogs because their kids are old enough that they could be, quote, helpers, and the parents don't feel like everybody in the house is a toddler at the same time. What I actually prefer, and this is in a dream scenario, I prefer for parents to set up the environment before the puppy even comes home, because I think there are a lot of scenarios that you can practice as a family before the dog is even part of the picture. I would recommend setting up baby gates or pens or regions of the house that are dog safe or kid safe, depending on the scenario. Sometimes we switch. Kids could go in a certain spot for safety, or dogs could go in that same spot for safety. But I like to have these special regions of the house that are no-go zones for the other species. And the reason is because that way it frees up the parent from saying no all the time. And it gives the parent the freedom to be easily able to just say, it's rest time for the puppy. The puppy is in the puppy zone. And end of discussion. It's not like I have to move you away from the puppy. Let me take the puppy out of your arms. Let me tell you no 100 times. Parents stop liking themselves when they say no all the time. We feel really bad about our parenting skills. And then we question why we got a puppy in the first place if we can't even manage our children. And then we now have a puppy who really doesn't understand the rules either. So I just like to have regions of the house where everybody can rest and parents can easily just swing open a door and say, let's go. And we go to a different section and people can have their privacy, or the dog can have its privacy and start to rest. This prevents a lot of other problems as well. So in my experience, which is really 9 years of specializing in this exact topic, is I notice that when puppies get really tired, they bite more than usual. So puppies bite anyway. That's how they explore the world. They don't have fingers, but they have very busy mouths. And that's how they taste things, they chew things, they feel things with their mouth. And destruction is part of the experience. But teeth on skin for an adult is not that significant. And in fact, I always do allow my puppies to gnaw on me a little bit because I want them to learn the right amount of pressure. If it gets too much where we have punctures or anything else, or where it becomes really uncomfortable, then I say, I can't let you do that. And I need a place to calmly say, it's time for you to take a break. Because when the biting gets harder, the puppy is usually tired and needs a rest. And if we end up with a puppy who's biting the kids, it's probably because this is a really busy family, busy lifestyle. The puppy's not getting breaks. But the result is quite impactful, which is that the kids become afraid of the puppy. We get kids of this age kicking puppies, not because they're bad kids, but because they are protecting themselves. So puppy bites them and they freak out and wail their arms around and kick and whatever. And puppies can get hurt and kids can get hurt. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
When you were talking about that, it reminded me of when my daughters were 3 and 1. I had a big space for my dogs who were 4 and 5 because my dogs needed to be safe. When I went in the shower, I couldn't trust my 3-year-old, my 1-year-old. So
Yeah,
not
I think
that's great.
And I think that it goes both ways, right? As we're speaking, my dogs are wrestling in the background, and my dogs are small. But I know that when your kids were little, your dogs were big. And so if dogs decide to have a play session the way mine are right now, they're biting each other and rolling around and running and whatever. And they could easily knock down toddlers. And so by having special zones in the house, the dogs can play wherever they're going to play. And you know that your children aren't going to get harmed.
Love that.
Yeah.
And so I had this big plastic fence. It was basically 2 plastic pens I put together. And I remember a morning where I climbed in the pen with my,
Yes.
because I needed a break from the kids and the dogs.
Yes. It's funny. You said something that makes me think of a meme that I saw, and I want to talk about it because I think it's important for people to think critically when they see social media, and when they see memes that seem funny or seem like a good idea, they are usually not a good idea. And a parent in this particular meme put herself in a crate and shut the door, and she had a glass of wine and some popcorn or something, and she was hiding from her kids. And well, not hiding, you could see her, but she was enclosed within this crate as if she needed a break. And it was really funny because, like you said, we all sometimes need breaks. But here's the thing: when we do things like that, go in a dog crate ourselves, or we let our kids go in the crate, they're watching us, they're learning. And a crate is a child-free zone. In my opinion, it is non-negotiable. Crates are not for children. I do think crates are often overused for dogs. That's another topic. But I do think that a meme like that, even though it's funny, if you see a mom hiding in a crate and people do that as a joke or whatever, you're normalizing that kind of behavior, and your kids are going to copy anything that you do. And we do not want, and I've seen countless memes. People have sent me memes for years. I have extra silver hairs in my head from all the memes people send me. But basically, kids and dogs in crates together and all these things. And it's really dangerous because if a dog doesn't feel that it has anywhere to escape, it can often bite kids. So I always want to make sure that dogs know that they have a zone free from pesky little kids. And I love kids, obviously, but I do think that unmanaged, and even sometimes managed, they try to make their own fun. And oftentimes it's at the dog's expense. And not all dogs are as tolerant as others.
So what are some tips? I can give tips to the adults when the puppies are nipping, and sometimes they translate that to the kids. And I'm like, that's for you to be able to do, not for your kid.
Yeah.
What's the advice when the kid is running, they're grabbing clothes, maybe nipping at them more because of that movement and chase? What are suggestions you give parents?
Okay, I have 2 that I can think of right off the top of my head. The first one is to teach kids to stop moving. So I love to play games with kids and teach parents how to play games with kids, like freeze dance. And literally, while we learn this game, there's no dog involved, and we turn on music. And I always take an older child and let them be in charge of somebody's playlist on their phone, and which they think is great fun, by the way. And they play music, and then as soon as they stop the music, everybody has to freeze. And then the people participating in this, when we start to include the dog in the game, people freeze. Everybody has little cookies in their pockets. And when we freeze, whoever the dog is near, we encourage the dog to sit or also go still, and then they drop a cookie on the floor. So the dog is rewarded for being calm. And this is a game that if you practice enough, and you can become fluent in this game, where every time I stop, you sit down or you lay down or you just stand still. Not all dogs are comfortable sitting or laying down, and I think that's worth noting. So whatever position the dog wants to be still in, I reward the heck out of it. And then it becomes a pattern. So if kids have friends over and their friends are nervous about the dog, or their friends are running crazy, we can say freeze, and it's fun for the kids, so they want to do that, and then the dog knows to just stop. So that kind of chasing type of situation can stop. The other thing that I think is really important is that we get kids to ask their parents for help. no matter what age they are, because I don't ever want kids taking that responsibility or taking on that burden of managing the dog themselves, because their timing will never be as good or as safe as a parent's timing. Kids may say no, they may yell, they may try to put hands on the dog to try to get the dog to stop, which can result in bites or getting pulled to the floor, all sorts of things. I don't want to scare the dog by having the kid coming at them with crazy, weird behavior. So if we teach the kids, maybe they have a safe word that they yell for the parents, or they say, or just call a parent or adult or nanny or whoever the adult responsible in the room is to ask for help. And so that adult needs to be responsible for separating the dog and child. And generally, I like to make sure that whatever that separation looks like is not punitive in any way. So we're not grabbing the dog and moving the dog away, because that will then teach the dog the child is something to be afraid of. And I don't want the dog to have negative associations around the child. So oftentimes it'll be a game that the adult plays. Maybe it's touch, or maybe we ask the dog to spin, or we ask the dog, maybe you take the dog's favorite toy and chuck it across the room, and they will then go for that item instead of the child. My two terriers go crazy for balls. And so if I were to throw a ball, anything else in the world would stop, except for maybe chipmunks or ground squirrels. Those win every time. But you pick something that's more valuable to the dog than this weird interaction with the child, and then we can move the dog away.
Love that. I recently had a client tell me that the dad moves into the puppy when the puppy's really nippy. And he tried to get his 10 and 12-year-old to do that, and it wasn't working. And I think sometimes we think our kids are older than they are, but I love what you said. We don't want to put that responsibility on them.
No.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think that in my experience, what I have seen very consistently across the board is that children who are larger bodied get treated as if they were older by their parents. So even if it's a really tall 6-year-old, the parent treats them maybe like they're 10. And that child developmentally is not at all capable of using the right kind of judgment or decision-making skills or timing or whatever to do that with the dog, right? Even a 10-year-old really isn't able to make those kinds of choices. And not only that, having a kid move into a dog's body can be quite punitive to that dog. If that dog has personal space issues or anxiety or pain, if that child should accidentally step on a paw or pull the fur by accident, by whatever that looks like. So I think that's really important. But yeah, it is not a child's job to do those things. And I think that can create more reactivity by encroaching on the dog's space than the opposite, which I would say, step away from the dog and walk really slowly to your bedroom and close the door, or go into the bathroom and close the door, or whatever it is, go outside and but be slow and calm. Use a really calm body to do this. Yeah.
And I like that you said too that they could do some exercises like touch and stuff like that. Either the parents are working on their own stuff with the dog. This is just building that engagement in a very positive way. So it doesn't have to look like perfection.
Just builds attention. And I think it strengthens relationships if we're doing things that are fun instead of things that feel naggy, I guess is the word. And that's a weird word, but we get annoyed. I got annoyed with myself when I was nagging the kids and nagging the dogs. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm annoying myself. And it wasn't fun. And so when I could toss a treat across the room, that was way more fun. And then I get the behavior I want. And I will say something controversial, which is that a lot of trainers are very discouraging of using food in certain situations where they might be worried about the owner's timing or whatever, because they're worried that perhaps they're going to teach the dog the wrong thing. But in my opinion, if I want my dog to move somewhere and they go to chase a piece of food that's rolling across the floor, I don't really care what the timing is, because the dog got the reward after it left the thing I wanted them to leave. So in my opinion, that timing is fine. Is it neat? No. Is it fancy? No. But in all my years of working with overwhelmed parents of kids and dogs, nobody's looking for fancy or finesse or perfection. We're not entering some dog trial. This isn't a fancy sport. This is like, how do I get down and dirty and want to enjoy living with my kids and dogs at the same time and not want to hide in a crate myself, right? So I am all for down and messy things if it achieves the thing I want consistently. I'm okay with that.
Any tips on kids that come in for the big hugs, pickups, or just petting really roughly?
Yeah. I got an email this morning, a pretty long email from a woman explaining how she just couldn't get her child to stop hugging and grabbing the dog. And in describing this whole scenario over many paragraphs, it was very clearly a parenting issue rather than a dog problem. However, she was wise enough to know that the dog was becoming increasingly intolerant of these kinds of advances and was starting to avoid the child. And it was starting to make her really nervous that something would happen, that the dog would, of course, defend itself against this child who is invading their space. And she was doing a lot of parenting strategies that were like, don't do this instead, and trying to give the kid rewards for making the right choices, but not really knowing how to intervene when the kid did the wrong thing. And then she was using timeouts for the child, which was building all these other challenging behaviors around their relationship. And I told her a phrase that I really like to use with children. And this is a phrase that I did not create myself. This is a phrase from a very well-known parenting expert that I learned from. And her phrase goes like this: I can't let you, and then you fill in the blank with whatever the thing is. I can't let you hit your sister. I can't let you bite me. I can't let you kick the dog. I can't let you pick up the puppy. I can't let you squeeze the dog, whatever it is. I can't let you. And what I love about this is you're assuming the role of the parent and you're saying, I'm the decision maker because I'm the only adult in the house right now. You're the child. I am the adult. And I am going to set a boundary. And it's a very clear boundary and it's measurable. I can't let you do this thing that I know will cause harm. And so this is what we have to do instead. So I can't let you hug the puppy. So the puppy has to go in his safe pen for now until you can show me that your body is calm. Very clean and clear, super simple. I can't let you pull the puppy's tail. Instead, we're going to go into the kitchen and you're going to help me make them. These are very easy things for kids to understand. And it prevents punitive things like timeouts or punishments that parents might be so frustrated that they just lose their temper with their child because this is the same thing over and over again. And so I just think that simple concept of I can't let you is brilliant. And so I adopted it after learning from her. And it worked.
I'm thinking I can use that in my relationships.
Yes.
I love it. It's funny.
Yeah, I can't let you make me feel that way anymore.
What first came to mind was thinking when I'm with my dogs out in the world and I've got adults who want to pet my dogs or somebody encouraging in my space and they're not listening.
Yes.
I love that thought of saying, I can't let you bring your dog up to my dog right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't let you add stress to my dog's experience here. My dog is nervous. I can't let you get any closer. And then you put your body in between them, right?
Love that.
So it's easy. And you can do that. You can very easily just step in between them. I can't let you get any closer because I see you really want to hug the dog. And he is so cute. And I totally get why you want to hug the dog, but I can't let you do that right now. He's eating dinner and you put your body in between them. And it removes emotion, which makes parents feel like they had a win. And we need that for our clients because they are already feeling in over their heads. Oh, what did I do? I have this puppy to train. I have a kid and it's so hard. And so that's an easy win in my book.
What about the parents that don't actually see that body language? What are the things they should be looking for? Sometimes they just see a kid hugging the puppy and they're just like, that's just normal. That's what we do.
Or they don't see the hug, they see the growl or the nip.
Yeah. I like to come up with a list of ground rules with my parents, not my parents. I think ground rules with my parents also, but ground rules with my clients who are parents, where we just agree on a certain number of principles, right? That if we have a puppy under 3 months of age, let's just say, we only hold the puppy if we're sitting down, period. It's not negotiable. I don't want the kid carrying the puppy across the house and the puppy's freaking out because their feet aren't on the ground and they feel really unstable. What I want is you can sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce, whatever it is, and the puppy can sit in your lap if it wants to. Right. So a lot of things like consent tests where we sit and invite the puppy. And if the puppy comes over and engages, the puppy saying, yes, please. And if the puppy walks away, the puppy said, no, thank you. So we're not going to have that kind of engagement. So that way it frees up the parent from having to notice all those subtleties where the puppy might look away or get whale eye or yawn or lick their lips or any other lift one paw. All of those are very subtle signs of stress. If a parent just says, oh, wow, I see you picked up the puppy, but remember, we said we would only be able to hold the puppy in our lap until he's much older. So now I think we need to have a little break from the puppy because you have lost your privilege of spending puppy time because you didn't follow that rule. It's a really easy rule, right? You have to make it very clear. And you need to tell them what to do, and we cannot tell them what not to do because that's what they hear. If you say to them, you can't pick up the puppy, they heard pick up the puppy, right? So we don't do that. That's not the way that we constructively give advice to kids. So instead we say, if you want the puppy in your lap, sit down, crisscross applesauce. And if the puppy wants to sit in your lap, he'll come over and sit with you, right? So it's sit down. This is what they hear. Sit down, and they sit down. And that's the thing that is the goal, right? And the reward for the child, because I'm all about rewarding everybody for good behavior, is that they get quality time with the puppy because it also achieves a still body. And kids who are like wild and crazy, which all kids have times and places where that's totally appropriate behavior, they can do that, but puppy time is not wild and crazy time because they could step on the puppy or trip on the puppy. I've heard so often of puppies who get paws broken or legs broken or whatever because kids have accidentally dropped them or kicked them or whatever. And we can avoid all those things if we have a quiet body. So by sitting, for example, now you have to pre-plan some potential disasters, right? Depending on the puppy. Perhaps you sit down and the kid is wearing pigtails and the puppy starts pulling on the kid's pigtails, right? So then we need a plan B. The kid did exactly what you asked them to do. Amazing. And now they had a negative experience. And we say, oh my gosh, let's try it with this tug toy instead. So you can never go take a shower, go make dinner, turn your back on this experience. You have to be fully present as an adult with an arsenal of tug toys and cookies and things in your pockets ready to go to replace any part of the child's body or clothing with something that's appropriate. So I think those are all strategies. We have to really think ahead. And that's our job as either dog and child specialists or just proactive behavior people, trainers in general, is we have to think through ahead of time what the problems will be before they happen and before the parents even know they're going to happen. And that can be hard for some trainers who don't have children of their own because they don't know what problems could happen. And that's why I love being generous with the materials I've made because I want people to know, because I know what the problems are going to be. That's all I've dealt with for the past 9 years. I know where the challenges will be, where kids will struggle, where dogs will struggle, what time of the day is harder than others, time and after dinner. For sure. Everybody is done. They're tired. They're done with the day.
You mentioned they have to be ready. I can think of plenty of my clients who aren't. And then we say, if you're not ready to supervise, that's why you have the pen. That's why you have these different safe zones. And there's nothing wrong with using those.
I had something frustrating happen the other day. I was browsing social media, as I do, doom scrolling. And there was a very reputable website that had some really good dog body language stuff that I used to share. And they were talking smack about using pens and gates and crates and all the things. And I was reading through the comments and I was like, this is the most absurd thing written by somebody who has never interacted with a child in their life. And they were saying that if you use a pen or put a baby gate up, that you're not actually teaching your dog the behavior that you want them to have. And I need to say, you could be a purist if you want, but at the end of the day, I am all about Band-Aid solutions that are easy and that get the job done. And if I need my kid to stop being bitten by the puppy, I'm going to put one of them on the other side of a baby gate because I need to stop that behavior from happening. Now, there is a great benefit when you do that. The dog gets to stop biting the kid and they learn to stop biting the kid. I don't know what they were thinking by saying that you're not teaching. I think that management is a training strategy. It is not just a management strategy. But I think that if a dog practices not biting children, then it will learn to stop biting children. And so without tools like gates and pens to make your life easier as a parent, the dog's not going to learn. And also dogs are going to be returned to shelters way more often or be euthanized because people just don't have the bandwidth and they just want the dog out of the house at whatever cost. And so I unfollowed that page and I will no longer ever recommend any of their teaching materials again because that was a line in the sand too far. It was too dramatic for me.
All right. We are going to finish up with a fun question.
Ooh, fun.
So now that you've given us some great tips, what we'd love is some games that you might recommend for parents and kids to have positive interaction with their puppies.
Okay. So I'm going to give you one that's not exact direct interaction, but it leads to positive relationships. And this suggestion is because I used to have a cooking school for children. And so I always love bringing kids into the kitchen to get them involved in anything where they can just be involved in a positive way with food. So I clearly have my own agenda for sharing this, but I think it's really fun if you can bring kids into the kitchen and make a really fun game out of creating all kinds of food puzzles for dogs. I sometimes call them engineering projects because kids can put boxes and tubes and boxes with tissue paper and whatever and hide goodies in there, and the dog has to later go find it. And what happens is these kids become the giver of good things. And so the dog is just super excited that this child is in their life because this kid brings them fun projects to do. So that could be stuffing a Kong or a Topple. It could be spreading items on a lick mat. Some dogs love frozen peas, for example, and kids who are really artistic can design the peas in cool patterns. And there's a million things that kids can do in the kitchen to help their parents stock up the freezer. And then the child can drop the stuffed frozen Kong on the other side of a baby gate and the dog can eat in peace. And this builds positive relationships, even though it's not a direct activity. Now, for a direct activity that kids and dogs can do together, I really like to play games like one that I call Puppy Ping Pong. And it's a silly game that involves two or more people. And what they do is they stand maybe 10 feet apart, right? And each of them has treats. And one person calls the dog and the dog goes to them and the child can drop a treat on the floor. One of my dogs will take your fingers off. She gets so excited. So I just sometimes have kids drop the food on the floor. The dog looks down, picks up the treat. The person 10 feet away calls the dog. The dog comes, drops the treat on the floor. Then what we do is we step apart. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, depends how advanced your dog is. So the people are getting farther and farther apart from each other. And they're calling the dog. So the reason it's called ping pong, it's like a ping pong game where the dog is the ball and it's bouncing back and forth between the people calling the dog. Now, if you have a family, let's say there's 4 people in your family, it could be a square. It doesn't have to be just 2 people. You can call diagonals. You just need to make sure nobody argues over whose turn it is to call the dog because that's confusing. But it is a really fun game. You can make a big growing triangle. I recommend starting this game in the house where there are very few distractions. And then if the dog gets really into it and understands, then we could try it in the backyard, or you could do it at the park. And if you're nervous, the dog can drag a long line so that somebody could always be stepping on it, and the dog can safely play this game and not run off and chase squirrels or get hit by a car or something. But those are really fun games where, again, the kids feel like they're helping with training and recall games. And the puppy is realizing that if I come to you when you ask me to, I get fed. And that's something that's going to benefit the dog for its whole life.
Nice. I love it. And I also love that it's not hands-on. I think a lot of my clients feel like they have to come up with an activity where there's handling issues. And I like.
Yeah. Handling issues when there are kids involved can be tricky because not all kids are gentle. And that can become unpleasant for the dog if the kid pets too hard, for example. One thing I do want to also mention is that a lot of our clients have children with learning differences. And so sometimes we really need to demonstrate for them, to show them what we're talking about, to include the kids and treat them with respect so that they feel that they can take that advice from us. Sometimes they take it better from us than they do from their own parents because we're the expert who comes to the house and has the special knowledge. So I think just making sure that we realize that some kids are very sensitive to sound, to touch. And if, for example, a child is really sensitive to a dog's barking, then we need to maybe work on games that have the dog be quieter so that this child is more comfortable living in close association with the dog. So it's just one example, but families come in all flavors. And so we just need to be really observant of what the kids are like. And we can also have private conversations with the parents without their kids around about what their biggest challenges are with their children so that we can make sure we can address those.
So that leads me to the final question. How can people reach you?
I'm in the middle of retiring, actually, but I am shutting down many of my places, but my website is still going to be alive. It's called poochparenting.net. I have made a lot of my materials free on YouTube, and parents can find those. I have 3 sections of my website. One is for families, and it will take you to YouTube videos, whether you have a baby or a toddler or whatever. I have one section of my website for shelters and rescues where I have free resources for those people to place dogs more successfully in families with children. And those have always been free because I want shelters to feel good about where they put dogs in our community and to do it wisely. And then another section for dog professionals. And I have handout bundles these are handouts that I've made for dog pros over the years. That is right now one of the last things that is a paid service that I have. I may make that free eventually, but I haven't yet. But poochparenting.net. I also have a podcast called the Pooch Parenting Podcast. It's on most of the players. And I think I'll keep that around for a while, because it's not too expensive to maintain. And I have some really good episodes that have been really helpful to people. So I think I'm going to have that stick around for a while for you.
We'll drop all that in the show notes so people can.
Okay. Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's a great tips.
Really good nuggets. So great to.
Hey, good. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in today, and hope you'll join us for our next episode. You can reach Emma at ecdogtraining.com or on Instagram at ecdog_training, and Kirsten at kwhappydogs.com or on Facebook at kwhappydogs. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.